Hi, my name is Shannon. For those that know me, hello. And for those that don't know me, I'm an ontological life coach who helps clients answer the question of contentment with authenticity. I'm coming here today to share with you a new endeavor, a new adventure that I am going on, and hopefully you will feel enticed or curious enough to come along with me. This journey is called The Dirty Pretty. It's an interview series that I'm conducting to hopefully allow each of us to soften into our humanity, not only with loving tenderness and kindness for ourselves and the complexity that is the contradiction that makes up our human existence, and the fact that we have differences and we're constantly changing all the time, on top of the world constantly changing and going through cycles and seasons of happiness and hardship and trying to learn how to stabilize in all of that together as a community, as a collective, and creating a narrative around it so that we can drop the pretense and say, the jig is up. It is hard enough to be a human being in this world without trying to operate in absolutes or perfectionism, without trying to constantly show up to somebody else's flavor or preference, while trying to figure out what brings us contentment, while trying to figure out what is this life all about. And I want to create a dialogue around that. I want to create a dialogue that empowers an I individuated perspective that says I am allowed to like and dislike things that I like and dislike. You are allowed to like and dislike things that you like and dislike. But we can also have respect with conflict. We can also have flexibility with conviction. I want to create a conversation that allows us to be empowered to speak our truths, and not only speak truths, but be able to receive them, hear them. Because half the battle of being a human being is reacting to what's going on in our environment. And sometimes what we have to react to is hard. It's challenging, and it's really frustrating because it can confuse us. And I don't know about you, but my experience with human beings is that we don't like to be confused. We don't like to be confused because our brain wants to keep us safe, and our brain likes to keep us safe with what's familiar. So anytime something unfamiliar comes into the purview, there's that feeling of trepidation and anxiety, even if just for a little bit, even if just because for that split second, we have to make a choice. We have to make a choice about how we're going to respond and how we're going to engage. And sometimes things are happening so fast that puts us out of sorts. That causes us to shut down. That causes us to numb and go unconscious and go on autopilot. And sometimes that autopilot can cause us to be reactive and projecting and casting our fears onto other people. And oh, by the way, in consumption and engaging with other people, absorb other people's fears, consume them and apply them to us. And then all of a sudden we become Chicken Little, walking around. Everyone's like, the sky is falling, waiting for the next shoe to drop. I'm not going to lie, catastrophe happens. Life, as Ram Dass says, is both horrendous and beautiful at the same time. At this very moment, there is a child being born in the world where somewhere else one is being, God forbid, taken advantage of or harmed in a way that is unspeakable. That's the reality of our existence. It happens. It's real. There are things that are beautiful about life, and there are things that are bulldozingly traumatic. And I want to bring this dialogue to the forefront, not so that we are traipsing through landmines of disappointment and hardship, but so that we can develop a resiliency to experiencing them, not only with other people and knowing how to remain balanced in ourselves and composure of what our baseline is about, what our center is about, where our contentment lives, but also so that when we experience them in ourselves, we know how to identify, oh yes, I am upset right now. Oh yes, I am mad as hell right now. Oh yes, I am so confused right now that I feel like I'm spinning. Oh yes, I'm just on autopilot doing the things I know to do because I don't know what to do with everything that's going on. To create a dialogue around naming that aspect of life so that we can say, I understand this. I understand what's happening to me is an extreme reaction to something that feels really large. However, where is the space for contentment? Where is the space for joy? Where is the space for my resilience? Where can I be in the middle of a moment and feel so overwhelmed and then know what to do to maybe not rectify the situation or correct it completely, but to center myself, to balance myself, to come back to my presence of being, to consciously say, this fucking sucks. This is hard as hell. This, I don't even know where to begin to put my arms around all of this. Breathe. What else is available? Well, I've been in hard situations before. Well, I may not have experienced this level of grief, but I do know that life goes on. What does that mean for me? Well, I may be confused and I may not know how to proceed, but there may be support for me. There may be me taking a pause. There may be me reaching out for someone. There may be me hiring an expert. There may be me whatever. The option to have opportunity and possibility for an object constancy exists. Dirty Pretty is this place. It is the place where we are going to learn to respect each other, learn to ideally respect the differences within each other, and learn how to respect the competing opposites that exist in the world so that we can identify that they are real. They happen in our reality. They happen to us. They happen within us. Dirty Pretty is my response to cultural toxic positivity that encourages a rigid dichotomous thinking, such as binary thinking, a this or that thinking, a right or wrong thinking, which can prevent object constancy, which is the ability to consciously have awareness and remember, yes, multiple truths can simultaneously exist, such as likes with dislikes, respect with conflict, flexibility with conviction. In the Dirty Pretty corner of the world, collectively and consciously, we see contradiction as the complexity at the center of our human experience. We see contradiction as what has the capacity to challenge our contentment. Choosing to see contradiction and confusion and conflict and catastrophe with loving kindness grants us permission to see competing opposites as simply a byproduct of wholeness, and what has the capacity to give us the foresight to check in and learn how to again find our stability when experiencing those extremes of competing opposites. In addition to identifying the competing opposites, really softening ourselves to the experiences that we have with unpleasantries or extremes or things that create conflict and confusion, is the exploration of curiosity for what brings us contentment, is the permission we are creating in ourselves with other people in relationship, like in the energy in the freaking universe, to be happy being ourselves, to find what gives us the zazazoo, what is the charm of us, so that we don't have to feel like we need to prohibit sharing our full shine. We don't have to feel inferior watching someone else share theirs. And we don't feel any reason to have to attack someone else's display of humanity, nor to tolerate anyone attacking ours. The hope of Dirty Pretty is not only to allow us to open our eyes to the differences, to conflict and extremes and competing opposites of hardship that occurs in our humanity, but it's also to really embrace the happiness and the contentment, understanding that our life is a choice and how we choose to live it is a choice. And if we are choosing to look at our experience of living and possibility as something that has a diminishing return on investment, then that's going to be the way that we also see the fullness of our expression, kind of an attitude of what's the use? That's the importance of creating object constancy, because at all times it gives you the opportunity to remember that multiple truths can simultaneously exist, and allowing ourselves to acknowledge, wow, this is somebody else's expression. That makes me feel a certain way, that makes me feel bad about my expression, but is it really truly that I don't like how they're displaying themselves, or is it because I feel inhibited in my own self-expression? As I mentioned earlier, my coaching strategy, my root of my center and my core of the purpose of my business is ontological coaching, which is addressing the wholeness of the individual and what makes up their essence. But ultimately, it's to help clients answer the question or the issues that they have about contentment and what conflicts with it and makes it seem impossible with authenticity. It's encouraging each one of us to say it becomes so much easier to deal with the competing opposites and the extremes of life when we don't have to also add on top of it performing an absolutes or performing at all, or perfectionism. With Dirty Pretty, the hope is that we will learn to find humor in the hypocrisy of our humanity. Learning from it is something with which we can find relatability and hopefully humility. With Dirty Pretty, the hope is to encourage declaring and sharing an I-individuated perspective as an act of intentional integrity and transparency, not as domination or a threat. With Dirty Pretty, the hope is that we will release ourselves from absolutes or perfectionisms and return again to personal, relational, and spiritual freedoms that are found in assessing whole truths, the both and all of wholeness. This interview series is going to be really informal. I really want to challenge us to look at both sides, as I said, not only to increase our perspective, but also to learn how to be with different perspectives. There will be times where I'm talking about curiosities in my experiences, the Dirty Pretty curiosities of them, and there will be times where I'll be interviewing regular human beings, subject matter experts, professionals, and those who are willing to declare what they have found to be the Dirty Pretty of their experiences. Ultimately, the hope with Dirty Pretty is to provide strength and sanctuary for those who have feeling fatigue from endlessly posturing positivity, trying to hide and deny that along with being whole, along with having happiness in life, there's also hardships too. So I'm really excited to bring this to you. I'm really excited to create what I consider this to be clarity with love in our environment and in our community that allows us to walk with transparency, that allows us to be different, that allows us to feel that divine mother love about who we are in our humanity, and also look at others with a compassionate eye through the lens of love for the differences that they have in their humanity. And that's understanding that sometimes we're not always going to jive with one another. Sometimes we're going to hear an opinion that hits us hard. But the opportunity becomes to understand, how can I respect myself to the highest degree of love and this other individual in the circumstance? And sometimes that means saying, that opinion, I just don't agree with that. It's not for me, without having to attack someone or belittle them or declare that they're wrong or you're more right. And sometimes it's also going to look like somebody coming to you and saying, I just cannot get down with your energy. And so I'm going to need to live separate from you, because that's the greatest way I know how to respect me and how to respect the fullness of your humanity. Dirty Pretty is our way of looking at each other and saying, we're not all going to get along, and we're not all going to get it right. And pretending that we do or that we should is too limiting and restrictive and doesn't allow us to have a really good time. Doesn't allow us to understand what our contentment is about. And doesn't give us the opportunity to learn, oh yes, I feel a wobble here. Oh yes, I feel a bubble up of rage. Oh yes, I feel guilt or shame or embarrassment. And then say, but I'm a human being. How can I come back from that? How can I heed this feeling of guilt as a learning lesson to learn how to stabilize with it? How can I heed this feeling of contempt as a signal of when it pops up in the future where I'm feeling challenged and might want to bubble up, of seeking refuge and learning how to temper myself? The Dirty Pretty is an area of the world where we just get to let it all fucking out and just be human with one another and really accept the challenge of what it means to walk with love and respect for our humanity. So as I said, I hope that you will tune in and join along and give us your feedback and your insights about what you think about the topics that are being presented. Of course, this is going to be governed as a respectful space. People are coming with their I-individuated truths, and that deserves respect because it is very courageous to be honest and transparent. And the same will be returned to you. We're going to be starting off this interview series with an artist who is willing to come and share with you the likes and dislikes, the Dirty Pretty of their experiences next week. I hope that you'll tune in, and I hope that you'll also tune in for the one-offs where I'm coming to you and just saying, hey, listen, I have a curiosity about this conundrum. Here are the sides I'm seeing. What do you think? What do you see? And hopefully we can create a community where open dialogue is welcome and warmed. And open dialogue is warm to our hearts as understanding it with courage, deep respect, and regard for the fact that we're all just doing the best we can. And the best we can is to learn how to stabilize in the competing opposite, in the extremes of life, learn how to find harmony in the hypocrisies of our humanity because we all have them, and understand what it means to find wholeness and contentment while living in the audacious extremes of life. Thank you as always for being here. Be good to yourself for fuck's sake. Live an honest life and choose to do the next right thing for you.